Bizarre, greedy, and lacks clarity. This Labour government was so eager to rush in and tax children's education that not only did it not realise that some institutions were going to register for VAT and then claim back millions of pounds that this government hadn't accounted for, but it also hadn't realised that what it was doing was quite probably unlawful, for reasons I'll explain in this video. But first of all, if you do me the brief favour of clicking the subscribe button below and like the video, that helps YouTube to spread my channel to a wider audience, and about 60% of you don't do so. I'd be really grateful if you did. Now, as I've previously said, I think this is an abhorrent policy to attack children's education that might affect hundreds of thousands of children across the country at varying levels of their education, many of whom will have their education split in the middle of their GCSEs, for example, because their parents simply cannot afford the VAT on top of their school fees. But just to address one or two of the comments that I've read as well, a lot of people saying these are not charities. They literally are, in many cases, registered charities, so they are not for profit. They are purely for the good of the services that they provide, and in this case, education. So let's go to the policy design for VAT and the application of school fees as set out by this government. It says, when considering the VAT treatment of education services, there's a number of factors to take into account, namely whether the services are made in exchange for payment, who's providing the services, whether they are an eligible body. And for VAT purposes, an eligible body broadly refers to most regulated, publicly funded or not-for-profit education providers, including said charities I've mentioned. The term also extends to commercial providers to the extent that they provide the teaching of English as a foreign language. All education provided by an eligible body is currently exempt from VAT. Education provided by someone who is not an eligible body is subject to a VAT of 20%. And then it says, as noted above, education services and closely related goods and services supplied by an eligible body are exempt from VAT. This includes private schools, who are considered to be regulated by virtue of needing to register with the government and inspected regularly. This means that private schools have historically been able to provide private education and boarding services for a fee without having to charge VAT. However, and here's where the selfish killer kicks in. It says, however, in order to raise revenue that will help fund state education priorities, as set out in the draft legislation as of the 1st of January 2025, certain supplies by private schools will be accepted from the VAT exemptions. This means that all education services and vocational training supplied by a private school or a closely connected person will be subject to VAT at the standard rate of 20%. Boarding and lodging closely related services will also be subject to 20% VAT. Now, the big key here, which they've obviously missed, or they've looked at it and thought that'll be fine, we'll work that out later, which I think is, if that is the case, is sloppy at best, negligent at worst, just my opinion. The bit that they've overlooked is university education. Now, this problem is twofold. First of all, because most students are 18 years old when they start studying at university. However, in the draft legislation, the Treasury has defined a private school as a fee-paying institution which full-time education is provided for persons over a compulsory school age but under 19, and which is principally concerned with providing education suitable for the requirements of such persons. For example, a sixth form college. So the Treasury has defined private schools for anyone up to the age of 19 providing for the compulsory education. That's the first problem, because there's an overlap. So this brings all universities, experts say, into the consideration for VAT, even though a Treasury spokesperson has said, as quoted by the Telegraph, and I quote, "University education is not captured by the draft legislation, and we have no intention of bringing universities into VAT." But that is first of all, that is in direct contradiction with the draft legislation. If they say that this is designed to capture private organisations providing education up to the age of 19. So first of all, there is a technical overlap, and tax experts now agree that this definition could capture most universities, as the students are 18 years old when they begin studying there. The British Universities Finance Directors Group, representing the finance at 180 universities, have written to the Treasury about concerns about this definition, which would include universities, despite the statement from the Treasury to say that they don't intend to apply VAT on universities. That means universities are left in this impossible position where technically the law captures the university for charging VAT, but the HMRC guidance says they don't. And so ultimately they are damned if they do and they are damned if they don't. That is just but the first problem. The second problem, in my view as a lawyer, is that this draft policy, as it is currently drafted, is very likely, at the very least, indirect discrimination on the basis of age. And I thank several people that have written in to highlight this issue. It's been on my list of things to do for a while now. Now, considering that children, obviously in private schools up to the age of 18, typically before they go to university, but universities not captured by this VAT scheme, this VAT is then treating children less favourably than those that have reached the age of 19. That is, by definition, at the very least, indirect age discrimination, if not direct age discrimination. Because the draft legislation is defining a private school as a fee-paying institution at which full-time education is provided for persons over compulsory age but under 19. So because it specifies an age, this could come into the realm of direct age discrimination. But at the very least, it's indirect. Now, age is, of course, a protected characteristic under the Equality Act 2010, meaning this whole legislation proposal could be unlawful anyway. And I am aware that there is a fundraiser, Education Not Discrimination, which on crowdjustice.com. I will link that in the description below. They have thus far raised over £176,000 to take this government to task legally over this VAT application to independent school fees. Now, as I've said in previous videos, whatever your views on these school fees, I urge you to watch all my other videos and with an open mind before you get entrenched in any kind of view. Those videos have now got collectively over 1 million views between them. And I feel it is incumbent on me as a lawyer to talk about these things to you, because not only do I think as a policy that it's abhorrent to tax children's education, but as I've just explained, it's probably unlawful and is open to judicial review. And so if it is brought to judicial review, a court might say that this is unlawful in that it is against the protected characteristic of age under the Equality Act 2010. And in that sense, the whole legislation in its draft form as it's currently proposed may be unlawful anyway. So on top of all the other factors that this government has missed with this VAT on school fees thing, I think it's about time for this government to have a good hard look at this legislation to see if it is not going to be a huge, disastrous, unlawful piece of legislation drafted by this government in its first year of governance. Now, just one or two other points as well. Whenever I talk about this issue, I always get at least one or two comments directed at me to say, I bet you went to a private school and this is why I'm so vocal on this issue. Well, I didn't. I went to a comprehensive school. I've talked more about that in previous videos. And the second is that a lot of people hold the view that it's only the rich people that send their children to private school, which is absolutely not the case. There are rich people that send their children to private schools, very elite schools that cost a lot of money every year, but those are in the very, very upper percentile. The vast majority of parents that send their children or grandparents that assist in sending children to private schools do so with huge sacrifices to their lives, and they work very hard to do so. So again, I'll link those videos in the description below. Please do go and watch those, and also do go and check out this fundraiser. And just so that I've said it clearly, I have nothing to do with this fundraiser. I didn't set it up. I'm not part of it. I am not paid or got anything to do with it. I've not been asked to promote it. I've just found it and I'm telling you that it exists. And they've so far raised over £176,000 in their mission to challenge the government over this policy. So I will also try to tag them, or if someone knows who they are, tag them about my video here, because personally I think that this draft legislation in its current form is at the very least indirectly discriminating on the basis of age. So I hope you found that interesting. Please do like the video and remember to subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.